Hello and welcome to another complete Cambridge IGCSE PE lesson, the 7th topic in Chapter 10, Professional and Amateur Performers. As always, we'll cover absolutely everything you need to know for your exam, and today you need to be able to identify the differences between professional and amateur performers, explain the blurred lines between professional and amateur status, and describe how sportsmanship and gamesmanship are displayed in physical activities. Amateur means engaging in a sports pursuit on an unpaid basis, while professional means performing a sports activity as one's main occupation or job rather than a pastime. Most people who take part in sport are amateur, as they do so for the enjoyment of performing. In the past, many top-level athletes were also competing on an unpaid basis, but the more recent growth in media and sponsorship, and specifically the funding they inject, mean that much of elite sport is now professional. Let's take a look at the key features of amateur and professional performers so that you're able to make comparisons between the two terms. Amateurs take part in sport during their leisure time and for recreational purposes. This means that enjoyment, social opportunities and health benefits are amongst the main reasons for participating, and winning is far less important than taking part. As amateurs don't get paid, training must be fitted in around other commitments such as work and family, making it extremely difficult to reach an elite standard. Professionals, by comparison, take part for money, as they're essentially paid to play sport. Training and performing is a full-time occupation that revolves entirely around being in the best possible condition for competition. Unlike amateurs who make their own decisions, professionals have little autonomy, and their schedules are often dictated by managers, clubs or sponsors. We'll move on now to our second learning objective, which is to explain the blurred lines between amateur and professional status. Many modern sports, including football, rugby and cricket, can be traced back to British schools in the 1800s. These schools were attended by the upper classes who believed that the purest form of sport was amateur and that it was neither ethical nor gentlemanly to compete for money. At this time, professional athletes tended to come from the lower classes who competed for prize money generated through betting. So sport has amateur origins, but the division between professional and amateur status started to become blurred, as for many amateur performers, sport was no longer simply a leisure activity and winning became increasingly important. They began to gain funding from a variety of sources, allowing them to access better quality facilities, coaching and equipment, and dedicate more time to training. In some instances, this shift meant that amateur performers had essentially become professional, forcing exclusively amateur events such as the Olympic Games to respond. A big rule change finally came in 1986, allowing professionals such as the basketball stars of the NBA to represent their nation. So where did the funding that drove this transition come from? Some countries' competitors were sponsored by their government to train and compete full-time, while others were being paid in secret. Some made money through sponsorships, achieved athletic scholarships at universities, received grants, or had trust funds set up. The International Olympic Committee itself even began providing compensation for training expenses and missing work, levelling the playing field between amateurs and professionals. Our final learning objective requires us to understand the terms sportsmanship and gamesmanship and how they relate to amateur and professional values. Sportsmanship means upholding the spirit of the game by being honest, playing by the rules and showing respect for your opponents. It relates to amateur sport and the traditional values of the 1800s, where acting with sportsmanlike behaviour was seen as essential to the gentleman amateur. Today, examples of sportsmanship can still be seen throughout professional sport, from the handshakes before and after a game, to applauding, shirt swapping, and tending to an injured opponent. Here are some important examples to take note of. In cricket, batters occasionally walk from the field if they know they made contact with the ball and should be given out, regardless of the umpire's decision. In football, players may kick the ball out of play to allow an injured opponent to receive treatment, even when in a strong attacking position. And finally, in tennis, players may even advise their opponents to challenge a line call if they believe the umpire made a mistake. By comparison, gamesmanship means seeking to gain an advantage in any way you can that is not against the rules. It relates to the win-at-all-costs mentality characterised by the professional era and at times treads a fine line between cheating and playing by the rules. Here are some examples of gamesmanship in sport. In football, players and managers may attempt to intimidate or pressurise the referee into altering a decision or lengthening stoppage time. Last-minute substitutions and feigned injuries are common time-wasting techniques, and diving or simulating a foul is regularly used to win free kicks. In certain sports, athletes use mind games or distractions to affect their opponent's focus, and in boxing, we occasionally see a punch below the belt or a late swing after the bell that signals the end of the round has sounded. Now you've just covered everything you need to know on topic 10.7, professional and amateur performers. If you'd like to practice applying what you've learned, you can find a link to every Cambridge past paper down in the description. As always, I hope you found this lesson useful, and I'll see you in the next one.